Okay, I'm in the lobby of the Merlot.
Alright, let's do it.
I've been avoiding writing this review as I, for some reason, lack the intelligence to mesh sentences together that could be labelled a review without some persisting issues that underlie due to my vocabulary and misunderstanding of the structure of reviews. But this style I should adapt as my very own. I played through the Watch Dogs story for the first time because it was free on the Epic Games launcher. I also went into this game blind. I never watched any previous videos or read up on anything about the game. I went in completely blind and played throughout the main story over roughly 2 or 3 days. A great way to spend isolation when COVID-19 makes leaving the house a worse sin than being a murderer. Nonetheless, this is what I thought about the game, what stood out to me and my opinions on all of that. I am Plutonian, and this is my Watch Dogs review. Watch Dogs is a 2014 action-adventure open-world game created by Ubisoft. The game is set in a fictionalized and over-technologized version of Chicago. The story following protagonist/vigilante Aiden Pierce and his endless search to find the people responsible for the hit that caused the accident, resulting in Lena Pierce's death.
Who gave the order?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Hit the family? Not a problem. Nope. Husky, I'm good. You'll never hear from him again.
The game begins with Aiden Pierce and his partner in crime, Damien Brinks, committing a bank heist that was not physical money, but electronic.
I'm hacking in.
Secrets and lies floating in a cloud of data. I just reach out, pluck it from the sky, and it's mine.
It's ours. Stay focused.
The problem of this online electronic bank heist is that it triggered a silent alarm set by another unknown at the time hacker. When Damien tries to find the hacker, he gives off his and Aiden's identity.
Let's take a peek.
Let's not.
Stick to the plan, Damien.
Check the accounts and get out.
Adventure, my boy. Have faith in your mentor. Something triggered that alarm. Let's find it.
Shit. You're scanning the system.
I'm almost there.
I'm shutting down now.
Don't you touch a thing.
The leak caused by Damien allowed the unknown group to target Aiden and Damien respectively.
Maurice,
Yeah?
you're on. One of our contractors ran a search for the hackers in the Merlot job. You're assigned Aiden Pierce. Take him out.
Fearing for his family, Pierce drives him out to what he considers a safe place outside of the city, calling it a surprise trip to the country. On the way, a hitman attempts to take down Aiden, landing a shot in his car's tyre, where Aiden loses control and crashes. Aiden was only minorly injured in the process, as opposed to his niece, who was unfortunately not so lucky. This is when the series of opener cutscenes and filler finally end, and Act 1 begins, which allows you, the player, to finally take control. Now, that's all the plot I'm going to mention because, well, I don't want to make a 6-hour review that retells the game's plot, and also, spoilers. I really hope that you either have played the story or this review inspires you to consider giving it a play. These days it's more than affordable, and at times completely free anyway, so it's a win-win. In terms of gameplay, I really believe Watch Dogs would have shined greatest on its 2014 launch. An open world game where you can hack things throughout the open city like traffic lights to cause crashes and block up traffic, blow up steam pipes under the road to destroy any unwanted followers or opposition. You could even use the security cameras littered throughout the city to case out a mission area, gang hideout, or to mark any enemies. You can hack anything from the cameras as well, including detonatable world objects, or by simply hacking any explosives those enemies may have on them. You can even use your hack strategically to hack communications, distracting the enemy for an easy headshot or an easy takedown. You can also completely disable the special enemy's ability to call for backup, which will of course lessen the enemy count. Or you can ignore the intel gathering and strategic hacks and go in guns blazing. This choice of gameplay style really expresses the non-linear nature of this game's gameplay structure. Outside of the main story, you can lose yourself in the side missions and activities this game offers. You can play poker and use your money as a stake, or even play chess. You can even get drunk in a fun drinking game. There are even hotspots for criminal activity which you can intervene, becoming your very own vigilante. But with every game, there's the good, the bad, and the in-between. I want to get into the positives, the neutral, and the negatives that I feel this game has. There are dozens of gameplay features and designs I could place on this list, but I have taken the liberty to limit these lists and only list what I deem absolutely necessary to be placed upon these lists. The positives. The main story. What can I say? The story is a very solid story with an ending that is both emotionally loaded and conclusively complete. There are a few loose ends, which may be sequel baiting. But as I understand it, the sequel uses new characters anyway, so these supposed loose ends might not end up getting tied up. But there is always every possibility. The versatility of hacking, adding replayability to the game. Hacking has been a really useful mechanic to use throughout the game. It is great that they cross this with the skill tree feature so that you could pick and choose what hacks you can use, and shape it to the availability around your playstyle. It's also really fun to cause so much havoc by switching the traffic lights, hacking people's banks at the ATM, blowing up the steam pipes, even timing your barriers to launch yourself into the air. The police/cop system. This game's police system really does put games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and games that use similar systems to shame. At the beginning I was worried the police system was too harsh, but as time went along and gadgets and hacks became more readily available, the police system truly began to shine. I really like the detection system because of one detail. You can use communication blocking hacks/gadgets to block its view and have a very easy escape. Even when you have the police in pursuit, it is simple to lose them if you need to. By escaping their view for a small duration, an area circle appears on the map. All you need to do to evade the cops is to leave that circle. It's archaic, non-tedious, non-convolutive, or difficult, and rather fitting to the design of Watch Dogs. The combat. The guns and the enemies feel really balanced. At first, when you lack powerful weapons and equipment, and even the focus ability, you get your butt kicked. At first, I had a negative feeling about it. I felt useless. But that's the system at play. I went back to the areas I was having issues with at the end of the game. An example being a gang shootout thing. And I was able to melt them, as opposed to getting my butt kicked. It was a real rewarding feeling, adding on to the initial feeling of concluding the main story. The system has genuine feels of progression, where the weapons and combat are balanced through the use of story progression. The graphics, ambience, and overall design. After finishing the game, I had learnt that the initial trailer reveal at E3 for this game had substantially better graphics, which people believed were going to be in the final product, and thus the release version suffered downgrades. Having played the game not knowing this, I had no idea. The game still looked amazing, atmospheric, and overly detailed. The lighting system was amazing, especially at times after initiating a blackout. I feel as though the reasoning behind the graphical downgrades would most likely have to do with the game existing on previous generation consoles, the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It would seem Ubisoft tried to blur the lines between the old gen and current gen consoles as well as the PC version so that people would not be repelled to purchase the game because they own the older hardware and would suffer further downgrades. That's the most I will list for the positives. Watch Dogs innovated so much, presenting the player with a unique, lengthy list of content. But in an effort to keep things short, I will move on to the neutral, feats existing in both the positive and or the negative category. The neutral, the positive and or negative. The skill tree. Skill trees in most games can be a hit or miss, and in this game it's sort of a hit and a miss. Where there are strengths, there are definitely weaknesses. I feel there are definitely weaknesses in the balancing of the skill tree. There are some skills that you could 100% need during the gameplay, like the focus skill and the car unlock hack to easily access cars. There are also useless skills that cost 4 or even 5 skill points that should only cost 1 or 2. And the nature of acquiring the skill points, with it being sort of difficult, further enforces my point. I also feel the tree was over-expanded in some categories and severely limited in others. Navigation, more specifically of the phone and the menu. The phone in this game is sort of a menu. You use it to view mission progress, access the skill trees, and other game content like the fixer contracts for example. The navigation and control of this menu just feels off to me. It at times can be unresponsive and misunderstanding. I feel like it could have been designed much better. GTA 5 is a great example of phone-style GUI/navigation menu that was done right. Vehicle variation. Throughout the main story, I drove most of the vehicles in the game. One of the first skills I bought was the one which allowed you to unlock cars without setting off the alarms. In all honesty, most of the vehicles in this game felt like the same vehicle. Vehicles may have looked different, but in terms of driving difficulty and speed, it usually felt like I was driving the same car just with a different skin or model. After the 4th or 5th car was bought already, which was not a good feeling considering at this time I was still in early into the story. Design of the map/world. The map is very nicely built, with great scale and offerings of open world feelings. But there is a lot of this map that is just empty, either just with foliage or models with no real uniqueness or reason. The game also lacks a great fast travel system. Where GTA has taxis, the only place I could find you could really fast travel to are safe houses, which isn't that great as the locations for the safe houses on this map are inconveniently placed. It almost feels Ubisoft went out of their ways to make the places we can travel to the most inconvenient. So those are the neutrals. It was really hard deciding what to put in that category as the game has much uniqueness, but also much flaw. The negatives. The driving system, a combination of focus and speed of vehicles. Whilst playing the game, you can quickly come to learn a few things. One of them being that the fast vehicles, or the sports cars, don't feel fast. In enough time you can get any old car or motorcycle up to the same top speed as the best sports car. Not only that, but any attempt to use the focus mechanic while driving usually leads to disaster. I would have preferred if the focus had functioned the same way as GTA's one did. Otherwise, it should have just been disabled whilst driving. The cover system. I had a lot of confliction with the cover system. I thought it was awesome, at first. It is only when you get into scenarios where pinpoint precision and lightning quick timing reveals the weakness of its systems. My revelation was long before, but it was only at the boss fight between Iraq, who wears combat armor to fight, I felt the weakness. The game continuously put me in the incorrect spot and somewhat freaked out as I was selecting my cover position whilst the camera was moving. The cover system felt bulky and confusing with a touch of incomplete. I understand cover systems are hard to develop, but I honestly hope that Watch Dogs 2 and future games have a much better cover system that is more reliable and less self-confused. Vaulting system. With cover system problems, definitely comes vaulting system problems. There was a lot of instances throughout my playthrough where the vaulting system either misplaced me or outright failed to work. There are many spots in the map where the game fails to register a mountable wall or solid surface at the height of a vaultable object. This is a letdown as, in some cases, vaulting over a wall would suffice walking around, say, an entire bridge, like I found myself doing, as the game failed to allow me to vault a knee-high wall. A lack of endgame content. Post-story, I was really hoping for some missions, you know? The missions inside games that are only available post-main story completion. But as far as searching goes, there was none. The only thing I found fun after finishing the main game was attempting gang hideouts and buying supplies to mess around about the city to cure my 12 minutes of boredom. The game seriously lacked post-story content that would have kept me returning. A lack of proper transportation or fast travel. After finishing the main story, the only source of fast travel is travelling between safe houses. This would be fine if the safe houses weren't located in what I believe are some of the worst locations for fast travels to take place. I mean the centre of an island where you have to wait for a bridge to slowly rotate to connect to the main city, then drive over said bridge. I know I keep referencing GTA, but the taxi fast travel system is a key example of a fast travel system in an open world game done right. This would be more of a negative issue if the Watch Dogs map were any bigger, but it's still a negative nonetheless. So those are the positives, neutrals, and negatives. What is my overall opinion of the game? In terms of a fleshed out main story, with a lot of side missions and games, I'd give this gameplay aspect a high rating. In terms of open world on the other hand, I feel as though there isn't a whole lot of replayability. Even in the areas that lack features, the game also lacks functionality. Being in an empty part of the map, for example, will have half-functioning vaulting, almost as if the developers never even looked out there after geo-building. I never got to try the multiplayer, but after a quick look online, and the fact I can't even attain a connection in the first place, I'm under the assumption I either didn't miss much, or I did and I'm about 5 years too late. As an overall rating for the game, I'll have to give it a 7 out of 10. The game may be clunky in areas, but the campaign was too good for it to not receive a half-decent rating. That's all I really have to say about this game. I want to go on about the game, but that would reformat this from a review to a ramble, and even to something worse, a video that appears to be made to farm watch time. This video took way too long to make. I wrote it at the beginning of April, and as I record this line it is mid-May. Oh well. What was your opinion about Watch Dogs? Let me know in the comments. This was the Plutonian, and this was my Watch Dogs review. See you in the next release.